At 5:47 a.m., Ethan Cole discovers a barefoot billionaire standing in his kitchen, bruised, wearing his shirt, brewing coffee like she owns the place. 12 hours ago, he pulled her from a burning car. Now she's asking him to save her life again. But this isn't about crashes or flames. This is about family betrayal, stolen millions, and a conspiracy that threatens everything she's built. What Ethan doesn't know yet is that helping her will put his daughter in the crosshairs of people who have already tried murder once. If you want to see how an ordinary father takes on the powerful elite, stick around until the end. Drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. Ethan Cole gripped the steering wheel of his Ford pickup, squinting through the windshield as the wipers fought a losing battle against the downpour. Route 40 stretched ahead like a dark ribbon, slick and treacherous under the pale beam of his headlights. It was 11:47 p.m., and he should have been home 2 hours ago. Lila would be asleep by now. Mrs. Chen from downstairs was watching her, again, the third time this week. Ethan's jaw tightened. Another late job. Another broken promise to be home for bedtime. The generator repair in Millbrook had taken longer than expected, and the client had haggled over every dollar like Ethan was trying to rob him blind. Welcome to the life of a single father running a one-man hauling and repair business. He reached for his coffee, cold, bitter, and took a swig. The radio crackled with static, some late-night talk show host rambling about the stock market. Ethan twisted the dial. Silence was better. That's when he saw the headlights. They came fast. Too fast. Swerving across the center line in his rearview mirror, closing the distance like a drunk driver or someone running from something. Ethan eased his truck toward the shoulder, giving them room to pass. But they didn't pass. The black SUV fishtailed violently, overcorrected, then went into a spin. Ethan's breath caught. The vehicle careened off the road, clipped a guardrail with a metallic shriek, and plunged down the embankment into the trees. Jesus! He slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded, tires hissing against wet asphalt before jerking to a stop on the shoulder. For a moment, Ethan just sat there, heart hammering, staring at the place where the SUV had disappeared. Rain hammered the roof, no other cars in sight. Just him and whatever hell had just unfolded down that slope. He should call 911, let the professionals handle it. But what if there wasn't time? Ethan threw the truck into park and grabbed his flashlight. He was out the door before he could talk himself out of it. The embankment was steep and slick with mud. He half slid, half ran down the slope, his boots struggling for purchase as branches whipped at his face. The flashlight beam cut through the rain, catching twisted metal and shattered glass about 30 feet down. The SUV had come to rest against a thick oak tree. The front end was crumpled like a soda can, steam hissing from the crushed hood. The driver's side was caved in, but the passenger door looked intact. Ethan stumbled to a stop beside the wreck, breathing hard. "Hey, anyone in there?" No answer. He moved closer, shining the light through the shattered windshield. The driver's seat was empty. Airbags deployed, blood on the steering wheel, but no body. Had they been thrown from the vehicle? He swept the flashlight around the surrounding trees. Nothing. Then he heard it. A low groan from inside the car. Ethan rushed to the passenger side. Through the rain-streaked window, he could make out a figure slumped against the door. A woman. Dark hair matted with blood, expensive-looking clothes torn and muddy. He yanked on the door handle. Locked. "Hold on!" He grabbed a rock from the ground and smashed the window. Glass exploded inward. He reached through, fumbling for the lock, and popped it open. The woman spilled halfway out of the seat, unconscious. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. She was lighter than he expected, mid-30s maybe, with a gash above her left eyebrow and bruises already forming on her neck and arms. "Can you hear me?" He patted her cheek gently. "Hey, wake up." Her eyelids fluttered. Dark eyes, unfocused, staring through him like he wasn't there. "You're okay," Ethan said, though he had no idea if that was true. "I'm getting you out of here." That's when he smelled it. Gasoline. His stomach dropped. He looked back at the SUV. Liquid was pooling beneath the engine, spreading toward the hot metal. Smoke was starting to mix with the steam. "No, no, no!" He didn't wait. He scooped the woman into his arms, turned, and started climbing. The embankment was worse going up. Mud sucked at his boots. Rain blinded him. The woman's weight threw off his balance, and twice he nearly went down. But he kept moving. His lungs burned. His legs screamed. Behind him, a soft whoomp echoed through the trees. Ethan didn't look back. He just ran. He was halfway up the slope when the explosion hit. The shockwave slammed into his back, throwing him forward. He twisted his body to shield the woman as they hit the ground together, rolling through mud and weeds until they came to a stop at the edge of the road. Ethan lay there gasping, ears ringing, the woman still clutched in his arms. Orange light danced across the sky. He forced himself to sit up and looked back. The SUV was a fireball, flames licking up through the trees, black smoke churning into the rain-soaked night. The woman in his arms stirred. Her eyes opened, sharp, aware, and locked onto his face. "Who?" Her voice was hoarse. "Who are you?" "Someone who just pulled you out of that." Ethan nodded toward the inferno below. She blinked, looked past him at the burning wreckage. Something flickered across her face. Not shock, not fear, but something colder. Recognition, maybe, or confirmation. "The driver," she whispered. "Where's the driver?" There wasn't one. Seat was empty when I got there. She closed her eyes. Her jaw tightened. When she opened them again, the vulnerability was gone, replaced by something harder. "I need to get out of here," she said. "Right now." Ethan stared at her. "You just survived a car crash and an explosion. You need a hospital." "No." The word came out sharp. "No hospitals, no police." "That's insane. You're hurt." "I'm aware." She tried to sit up, winced, and grabbed her side. "But I can't go to a hospital. Not yet." "Why the hell not?" She met his eyes. Rain dripped from her hair, mixing with the blood on her face. When she spoke, her voice was steady despite everything. "Because whoever was driving that car just tried to kill me. And if they find out I survived, they'll finish the job." Ethan's apartment was exactly what it looked like, the home of a man who worked too much and slept too little. He half carried the woman up the stairs to the third floor, keenly aware of Mrs. Chen's door cracking open as they passed the second landing. The old woman's disapproving gaze followed them up. Great. Another thing to explain later. Inside, the living room was a mess of Lila's toys, unopened mail, and a coffee table buried under repair manuals. The couch where Ethan usually crashed was still made up with a tangled blanket and flat pillow. He eased the woman onto it. "Stay here," like she was going anywhere. "I'll get the first aid kit." In the bathroom, Ethan caught sight of himself in the mirror. Mud-streaked, soaked to the bone, a cut on his cheek he didn't remember getting. He looked like he'd crawled out of a grave. He grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink, a battered plastic box he mostly used for Lila's scraped knees, and headed back. The woman was sitting up now, examining her injuries with the detached focus of someone conducting an inventory. She'd peeled off her ruined jacket, revealing a silk blouse torn at the shoulder. Her left arm was badly bruised. The gash on her forehead had stopped bleeding but needed cleaning. "Let me see." Ethan knelt in front of her, opening the kit. She watched him with those dark, calculating eyes. "You're not a paramedic." "Nope, generator repairman, but I've patched up worse on myself." He soaked a gauze pad with antiseptic. "This is going to sting." She didn't flinch when he pressed it to the cut, just kept staring at him. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ethan. Ethan Cole." "Ethan." She tested the name like she was filing it away. "Thank you for pulling me out." "Don't mention it." He applied a butterfly bandage to close the wound. "Your turn." "Who are you?" A pause, long enough that he looked up. "Alessandra," she said finally. "Alessandra Varelli." The name meant nothing to him. Should it? "Okay, Alessandra. Want to tell me why someone just tried to kill you?" "I don't know yet." She glanced toward the window where rain still pattered against the glass. "But I intend to find out." Ethan sat back on his heels. "Look, I don't know what kind of trouble you're in, but you can't just hide out here. You need real medical attention, and the police can't help me." Her voice was flat. "They'll file a report, launch an investigation. By the time anyone takes it seriously, I'll be dead." "That's dramatic." "It's accurate." She met his eyes. "I know how this works, Ethan. I know exactly how this works. Whoever set this up will have a story ready. Drunk driver, accident, tragic loss. They'll have witnesses, evidence, everything lined up before I even make it to a hospital bed. Ethan stood, running a hand through his wet hair. This was insane. He didn't sign up for conspiracy theories and assassination attempts. He'd pulled a stranger from a burning car because it was the right thing to do, not to become part of whatever mess this was. "I think you should leave," he said. "Where would I go?" "I don't know. Home? Family? Someone who can actually help you?" Alessandra laughed. It was a bitter sound, sharp as broken glass. "My home is where someone just tried to murder me. My family is who I suspect put them up to it. And as for people who can help," she gestured at the shabby apartment, "you just saved my life. That puts you ahead of everyone I've trusted for the last 5 years." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, then closed it, because the look on her face wasn't manipulation or exaggeration. It was the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who'd just realized they were completely alone. He'd seen that look before. In his own mirror, the day his ex-wife walked out, leaving him with a 2-year-old daughter and a mountain of debt. "One night," he heard himself say. "You can stay one night. Tomorrow, we figure out what to do next." Alessandra nodded slowly. "One night." Shin. Ethan gave her his bed and took the couch. It wasn't chivalry. He'd been sleeping on the couch for months anyway. The bedroom had become a storage space for broken equipment and boxes he'd been meaning to sort through since the divorce. He lay there in the dark, listening to the rain and the occasional creak of floorboards from the bedroom. His mind wouldn't shut off. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the SUV spinning out of control. The flames. Alessandra's face when she'd asked about the driver. Whoever was driving that car just tried to kill me. Who the hell had he brought into his home? Ethan reached for his phone on the coffee table. The screen glowed, 2:17 a.m. He opened a search browser and typed, Alessandra Virelli. The results loaded, and his stomach dropped. The first image was a professional headshot. Alessandra in a navy suit, dark hair pulled back, standing in front of a glass building with Virelli Technologies etched into the facade. The headline read, Billionaire Tech CEO Alessandra Virelli announces expansion into clean energy sector. Billionaire. Ethan scrolled down. More articles, business profiles, interviews, photos of her shaking hands with politicians, cutting ribbons at charity events, accepting awards. Virelli Technologies, valued at $2, $3 billion, founded by the late Marcus Virelli. Daughter Alessandra assumes control following his death in 2019. Company specializes in battery storage solutions and renewable energy infrastructure. Estimated personal net worth, $1.8 billion. He looked toward the bedroom door. The woman sleeping in his beat-up IKEA bed was worth nearly $2 billion, and someone had just tried to kill her. Ethan set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. One night, he'd said, but he had a sinking feeling that one night was about to turn into something much more complicated. The sound of running water woke him. Ethan opened his eyes to morning light filtering through the blinds and the distant hum of the shower running in his bathroom. For a confused moment, he thought he'd dreamed the whole thing, the crash, the fire, the billionaire. Then Alessandra walked out of the bedroom. She'd cleaned up as best she could. Her hair was damp, pulled back from her face. The bruises on her arms looked worse in daylight, deep purple and black. She'd found one of his old white button-ups in the closet and rolled the sleeves to her elbows. No shoes, just bare feet on his scuffed hardwood floor. She looked smaller in the morning light, more human. "Coffee?" she asked, like this was normal, like she belonged here. Ethan sat up, the blanket falling away. "You know how to work my coffee machine?" "It's not complicated." She walked toward the kitchen. "I may be a billionaire, but I can manage basic appliances." So she knew he'd looked her up. Fair enough. Ethan followed her into the kitchen. True to her word, the coffee maker was gurgling away, filling the apartment with the smell of cheap grocery store grounds. Alessandra leaned against the counter, arms crossed, studying him. "We need to talk," she said. "Yeah, we do." Ethan grabbed 2 mugs from the cabinet. "Starting with what happens next. You can't stay here." "I know. And you need to go to the police. Real police, not just filing a report. Tell them someone tried to kill you." "And say what?" Alessandra's voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. "That I was in a car crash, but I don't know who was driving. That I suspect my family is involved, but I have no proof. That I fled the scene and spent the night with a stranger instead of seeking medical attention." Ethan poured coffee. "When you put it that way, it sounds insane, I know." She accepted the mug he offered. "But here's what I do know. Yesterday morning, I had access to everything. My accounts, my company, my security team. By last night, I was locked out. My phone is dead. My passcodes don't work. My fiancé isn't answering calls." "Your fiancé?" A muscle twitched in her jaw. "Marcus Bellamy. We've been engaged for 8 months. He was supposed to meet me for dinner last night. Never showed. When I tried to go home, the security system didn't recognize me. My own home, Ethan. I couldn't get in." The coffee tasted like cardboard, but Ethan drank it anyway. "Maybe there's a technical issue." "It's not technical." Alessandra set her mug down with a sharp click. "Someone coordinated this. Someone with access to my systems, my security, my life. They planned it. And that car crash wasn't random. It was meant to finish what they started." "You keep saying they. Who's they?" She looked away. "I don't know. Not for certain. But if I had to guess..." Her voice dropped. "My stepmother, Catherine. She married my father 3 years before he died. She's been on the company board ever since, and she's never forgiven me for being named his successor instead of getting a controlling share." "So you think your stepmother tried to have you killed for your company?" "I think my stepmother is capable of a lot of things." Alessandra met his eyes. "Including murder." Ethan rubbed his face. This was too much. Way too much for 6 a.m. on a Thursday. "Okay," he said slowly. "Let's say you're right. What's your plan?" "I need to get back into my company, physically get inside the building and access my office systems. Once I'm in, I can lock everyone else out and figure out what's happening." "Can't you just call someone? A lawyer? Your board members?" "And trust which one?" Alessandra's laugh was hollow. "The same people who've been working alongside Catherine for 3 years? The ones who might be helping her right now? No. I need to see the evidence myself before I trust anyone." Ethan leaned against the counter. "The smart thing would be to walk away. Drive her to a lawyer's office or a police station and let professionals handle it. He had Lila to think about, his business, his life. But looking at Alessandra, bruised, exhausted, wearing his shirt like armor, he couldn't shake the feeling that walking away meant leaving her to die. "Where's your company?" he asked. "Manhattan, Midtown. That's 2 hours from here." "I know." "And you have no money, no ID, no phone." "I'm aware." "So how exactly were you planning to get there?" Alessandra looked at him, really looked at him. And in that moment, Ethan understood what she'd been working up to since the moment he'd pulled her from that car. "I was hoping," she said quietly, "that you'd drive me." They left at 7. Ethan threw on clean clothes, grabbed his truck keys, and left a note for Mrs. Chen asking her to keep Lila until he got back that afternoon. He hated doing it, hated relying on her generosity again. But what choice did he have? Alessandra borrowed one of his old hoodies and a pair of work boots that were 3 sizes too big. She looked ridiculous. Also somehow more real than any of those polished photos online. The drive to Manhattan was quiet at first. Ethan kept the radio off, his eyes on the road. Alessandra stared out the window, lost in thought. "Tell me about your daughter," she said suddenly. Ethan glanced at her. "What?" "Last night you mentioned you should have been home. I saw the toys in your apartment, pictures on the wall. How old is she?" 5. Her name's Lila." "Where's her mother?" "Gone." The word came out harder than he intended. "Took off 2 years ago. Decided being a mom wasn't for her." Alessandra nodded slowly. "And you've been raising her alone since then?" "Yeah." "That can't be easy." "It's not." Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. "But it's what you do. You don't get to quit just because it's hard." Something shifted in Alessandra's expression. "No," she said softly. "You don't?" They drove in silence for a while longer. "Why are you helping me?" she asked eventually. Ethan had been asking himself the same question. "I don't know. Stupidity, maybe." I don't think you're stupid.
Then, then you don't know me very well. Alessandra smiled. It was small, barely there, but real.
Maybe not. But I know you could have left me in that car last night. You could have kicked me out of your apartment this morning. You could have said no when I asked for help. Most people would have. Most people haven't pulled a billionaire out of a burning SUV. Fair point. She looked at him. When this is over, if we make it out of this, I'll make sure you're compensated, whatever you need. Money, connections, opportunities. I don't want your money. The words came out sharper than he meant. Alessandra blinked, surprised. I'm not doing this for a payout, Ethan continued. I'm doing it because someone tried to kill you, and that's not okay. Because leaving you alone when you've got no one else would make me the kind of person I don't want to be. That's it. So please don't insult me by turning this into a business transaction. Alessandra stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked away, out the window again. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I'm not used to people helping just to help. Yeah, I'm getting that. They didn't talk much after that, but something had shifted between them. Some invisible wall had come down. By the time they hit Manhattan traffic, it was almost 9 a.m. Alessandra directed him through the grid of streets until they reached a sleek glass tower in Midtown. Borelli Technologies was etched across the top in steel letters, gleaming in the morning sun. Ethan parked across the street and killed the engine. Now what? He asked. Alessandra was already unbuckling her seatbelt. Now I walk in like I own the place, because I do. And if they try to stop you, then we'll know for sure that something's wrong. She reached for the door handle, then paused, turned back to him. Thank you, Ethan, for all of this. If I don't make it back, you'll make it back. She smiled. Optimist. Realist. You're too stubborn to die now. Alessandra laughed, a real laugh this time, and climbed out of the truck. Ethan watched her cross the street. Even in borrowed boots and a hoodie, she moved with the kind of confidence that made people step aside. She walked through the front entrance like she was supposed to be there, and disappeared inside. Ethan waited, checked his phone, scrolled through messages, misses. Chen had sent a photo of Lila eating breakfast. Syrup everywhere, huge grin. He smiled despite everything. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Hello? It's me. Alessandra's voice was tight. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where my access card doesn't work, and security is escorting me out as we speak. Ethan sat up. Through the glass doors, he could see 2 uniformed guards flanking Alessandra, walking her toward the exit. What do you want me to do? Pick me up. Now. The guards pushed open the doors. Alessandra walked out between them, her face a mask of controlled fury. They stopped at the curb, watching as she crossed to the truck. She climbed in, slammed the door. Drive, she said. Ethan drove. Behind them, the guards stood watching until they turned the corner and disappeared from sight. They locked me out, Alessandra said. Her voice shook with barely contained rage. My own company. They said my employment status was under review, that I needed to contact HR and legal before attempting to access the building again. Can they do that? Not legally. Not without board approval, but someone gave those orders. She pressed her palms against her eyes. Someone very high up. Ethan pulled over a few blocks away. So what now? Alessandra lowered her hands. Her eyes were red, but her jaw was set. Now, she said, we find out who's behind this, and we make them pay. Ethan drove aimlessly for 20 minutes while Alessandra worked through her options out loud. Most of them involved lawyers, which required money she couldn't access, or investigators, which required time she didn't have, or going to the press, which she dismissed immediately. The moment this becomes public, they'll bury me, she said, staring at her reflection in the side mirror. Catherine's been cultivating relationships with journalists for years. She'll spin this as a mental breakdown, erratic behavior, maybe even drug use. Can she do that? She can do whatever she wants if I'm not there to fight back. Alessandra turned to look at him. I need access to my systems, internal files,
Email records, financial transactions, something that proves what they're doing. Ethan stopped at a red light. A thought occurred to him. What about your fiancé, this Marcus guy? Could he help? Alessandra's expression darkened. I don't know. Last night, I thought... She stopped, started again. I thought maybe he was in danger too, that they'd gotten to him, but now I'm not sure. You think he's part of it? I think everyone's a suspect until proven otherwise. She rubbed her temples. We met at a charity gala 2 years ago. He's a venture capitalist, smart, charming, connected. My father would have loved him. Catherine certainly does. The light turned green. Ethan drove. Where does he live? He asked. Upper East Side. Why? Because if he's involved, maybe his place has answers. And if he's not, maybe he can help. Ethan glanced at her. Either way, it's a lead. Alessandra considered this. He has a doorman, security cameras. I can't just walk in looking like this. So we don't walk in. We wait, watch, see if he shows up. That could take hours. You got somewhere better to be? She almost smiled. Fair point. Marcus Bellamy lived in a building that probably cost more per month than Ethan made in a year. Glossy black facade, a doorman in white gloves, the kind of place where you needed an appointment just to breathe the lobby air. They parked down the block with a view of the entrance and waited. Ethan killed the engine to save gas. The truck cabin grew warm in the late morning sun. Alessandra slouched in the passenger seat, hood pulled up, watching the building like a hawk. Tell me something, Ethan said after a while. Why'd you take over your father's company? She didn't look at him. It's what he wanted. That's not an answer. Alessandra was quiet for a moment. My father built Virelli Technologies from nothing, dropped out of college, maxed out credit cards, lived in his car for 6 months while he worked on the first prototype. By the time I was born, the company was already worth $50 million. By the time I graduated high school, it was approaching $1 billion. So you grew up rich. I grew up watching my father work himself to death. Her voice was flat. 16-hour days, missed birthdays, holidays spent in conference rooms. He loved that company more than he loved anything else, including my mother, including me. Ethan watched her profile. But you took it over anyway. Because walking away would have meant admitting he wasted his life, that all those missed moments, all that sacrifice, that it was for nothing. She finally looked at him. I couldn't do that to him, even if he was already gone. That's a hell of a reason to run a billion-dollar company. Yeah, it is. She turned back to the building. Some days I wonder if I'm keeping his legacy alive or just punishing myself for never being enough when he was around. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just sat there, sharing the silence. A town car pulled up to the building's entrance 20 minutes later. Alessandra sat up straight. That's him. Marcus Bellamy stepped out of the back seat. Tall, maybe 40, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of suit that cost more than Ethan's truck. He moved with easy confidence, phone pressed to his ear as he walked toward the entrance. Stay here, Alessandra said, reaching for the door handle. Ethan grabbed her arm. Bad idea. I need to talk to him. And say what? You look like you just crawled out of a dumpster. He takes one look at you, and either he calls the cops or confirms you're losing it. Then what do you suggest? I'll go. She stared at him. You? I'm a contractor. I can talk my way into anywhere. Ethan was already opening his door. Stay put. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Before she could argue, he was out of the truck and crossing the street. The doorman gave him a once-over as he approached. Muddy boots, worn jeans, flannel shirt. Definitely not tenant material. Help you? The doorman asked. Polite but firm. Yeah, I'm here to see Marcus Bellamy, Unit 1204. Got a work order for a generator inspection. I don't have anything on the schedule. Ethan pulled out his phone, pretending to check something. Huh. Says here it was called in yesterday. Emergency maintenance? Something about power fluctuations? The doorman frowned. I'll need to confirm with Mr. Bellamy. Sure, no problem. I'll wait. The doorman stepped inside to use the desk phone. Ethan watched through the glass doors, saw him dial, speak briefly, hang up with a confused expression. He came back out. Mr. Bellamy says he didn't request any maintenance. Really? That's weird.
Ethan scratched his head. Mind if I come in and check the basement panel anyway? If there's an issue and I don't flag it, building management's going to be on my back. The doorman hesitated, then shrugged. Make it quick. Inside, the lobby was all marble and mirrors. Ethan headed toward the service hallway like he knew where he was going. The doorman returned to his post. Ethan didn't go to the basement. He took the elevator to the 12th floor. The hallway was empty and silent, thick carpet muffling his footsteps. He found 1204 and knocked. Marcus Bellamy opened the door, still wearing his suit jacket, phone in hand. Can I help you? He looked annoyed. Mr. Bellamy? My name's Ethan Cole. I'm here about Alessandra Varelli. The annoyance shifted to something else. Confusion. Maybe concern. Alessandra? Is she all right? That depends. When's the last time you saw her? Marcus's eyes narrowed. Who are you exactly? Someone who pulled her out of a car crash last night. Someone who's trying to figure out why her fiancé hasn't answered her calls or shown up when she needed help. The color drained from Marcus's face. Car crash? What are you talking about? Either he was a fantastic actor or he genuinely didn't know. She was in an accident on Route 40. Someone ran her off the road. The car exploded. Ethan kept his voice level. She barely made it out. Marcus stepped back, gripping the doorframe. Where is she now? Safe, for now. But she's locked out of her company, her home, her accounts, and she thinks someone close to her is behind it. That's insane. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like someone coordinated a pretty thorough takedown. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. His phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced at it, then silenced it. Come inside, we need to talk. The apartment was exactly what Ethan expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, art that probably cost 6 figures. Marcus gestured to a leather couch. Tell me everything, he said. Ethan did. The crash, the explosion, Alessandra showing up at his apartment, the lockout at Varelli Technologies. He left out the part about her suspecting family involvement, wanted to see if Marcus would go there on his own. When Ethan finished, Marcus was pacing. I knew something was wrong, he muttered. Yesterday, Catherine called me. Said Alessandra had been acting erratically. Missing meetings, making strange financial decisions. She wanted me to encourage Alessandra to take time off, see a therapist. And you believed her? I didn't know what to believe. Alessandra's been under enormous pressure, the clean energy expansion, the board tensions, the anniversary of her father's death coming up. Marcus stopped. But a car crash, being locked out? That's not stress, that's sabotage. So you think Catherine's behind it? Marcus met his eyes. Catherine's been trying to push Alessandra out since the day Marcus Varelli died. She wanted control of the company. When the will named Alessandra as CEO, Catherine contested it. Spent 2 years in court trying to overturn it. She lost, but she never stopped scheming. Why didn't you tell Alessandra this? I did. She knows what Catherine is. But knowing and proving are different things. Marcus's phone buzzed again. He looked at it, frowned. That's Catherine now. 3rd call this morning. What does she want? Probably to see if I've heard from Alessandra. He declined the call. She's been fishing for information, asking if Alessandra mentioned anything unusual, if she seemed unstable. Ethan stood. We need to get Alessandra back inside that building. She needs evidence. That's not going to happen. Not through the front door. Marcus thought for a moment. But there might be another way. I'm listening. Varelli Technologies has a secondary facility. Smaller building about 10 blocks from headquarters. They use it for equipment storage and overflow workspace. Alessandra has access there, or she should, if they haven't revoked everything yet. Why would they leave that open? Because it's low priority. No sensitive files. No executive offices. If Catherine's focused on locking down the main building, she might not have thought to secure the secondary site. Marcus grabbed his jacket. It's worth a shot. You're coming with us? She's my fiancée. Of course I'm coming. They took the elevator down together. In the lobby, the doorman gave Ethan a suspicious look, but said nothing. Alessandra was still in the truck when they approached. She saw Marcus and went rigid. Ethan opened the passenger door. He's clean, I think. Marcus stepped forward. Alessandra. She launched herself out of the truck and straight into his arms.
For a moment, they just held each other. Marcus whispered something Ethan couldn't hear. Alessandra pulled back, eyes searching his face. "Where were you?" she asked. "I called. I went to your place. I was in Boston. Emergency meeting with investors. I just got back an hour ago." He touched her bruised face gently. "Your stepmother told me you were having a breakdown. I should have known better." "You couldn't have known." "I should have." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry." Ethan cleared his throat. "We should move. Standing around makes us targets." They piled into the truck, Alessandra in the middle, Marcus by the window. Ethan started the engine. "Where to?" he asked. Marcus gave him an address. The secondary facility was unremarkable. A 4-story building wedged between a parking garage and a restaurant supply store. No fancy signage, no lobby guards, just a plain door with a card reader. Alessandra tried her access card. The light turned green. The lock clicked open. She looked at Marcus, then at Ethan. "Let's go." Inside was a maze of corridors and storage rooms, bare concrete floors, fluorescent lights, the smell of old electronics. They passed pallets of boxed equipment, stacks of monitors, cables bundled in bins. "Server rooms on the 3rd floor," Marcus said. They took the stairs. The building was empty. No staff, no security, just the hum of ventilation systems. The server room door was unlocked. Inside, rows of black metal racks hummed quietly, blinking lights casting shadows across the walls. Alessandra moved to a workstation in the corner and logged in. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm in," she said. "I'm actually in." Marcus stood watch by the door. Ethan hovered near Alessandra, watching lines of code and file directories flash across the screen. "What are you looking for?" he asked. "Anything unusual? Email traffic, financial authorizations, access logs." She opened a folder, scrolled, clicked. "Catherine's been busy. Look at this." She pulled up an email chain dated 3 days ago. Catherine Virelli to Jonathan Rhodes, CFO. Subject line, transition planning. Alessandra read aloud. "Per our discussion, I've begun preparing the necessary documentation for the board vote. Once Alessandra is removed as CEO, we'll need to move quickly to stabilize investor confidence. I recommend a press release within 24 hours of the transition." "Removed?" Marcus leaned over her shoulder. "On what grounds?" Alessandra clicked through more emails. Her face went pale. "Mental incompetence," she whispered. "They're building a case that I'm mentally unfit to lead the company. Missed meetings that were never scheduled. Financial decisions I never made. Erratic behavior witnessed by staff." She looked up. "This is all fabricated, every single piece of it." Ethan felt cold. "Can you prove that?" "Maybe. If I can access the raw server logs, I can show the timestamps don't match, that these documents were backdated." She was typing again. "But I need more. I need the financial records. If Catherine's planning to take over, she's moving money. Lots of it." She pulled up another directory. Kaiwu records, transaction histories. And there it was. A series of wire transfers dated over the past 6 months. Small amounts at first. 50,000 here. 100,000 there. Then larger. 500,000, 2 million, all routed through shell companies to offshore accounts. $217 million, Alessandra said. Her voice was shaking. "She's been siphoning money from the company for half a year." Marcus stared at the screen. "That's embezzlement. That's prison time. That's why she needs me gone." Alessandra's hands were shaking now. "If I stay CEO, I'll eventually find this. Audit the accounts. Trace the transfers. She can't risk that. So she has to remove me. Permanently." "The car crash," Ethan said. Alessandra nodded. "If I died last night, this all disappears. Catherine becomes CEO. The board approves the transition. She covers her tracks and walks away with $200 million. "But you didn't die," Marcus said. "You're here, and now we have proof. We have data. That's not the same as proof." Alessandra ejected a USB drive from the workstation. "We need to get this to someone who can authenticate it. A forensic accountant. The SEC. Someone who can make it stick." That's when they heard it. Voices. Echoing up from the stairwell. Footsteps. Multiple people. Ethan moved to the door and peered out.
3 men in dark suits were coming up the stairs. Not security guards, something worse. "We need to go," he said. "Now." Alessandra shoved the USB drive into her pocket. They bolted for the back exit. The hallway branched left and right. Marcus took the lead. "This way! Fire escape!" They ran. Behind them, the footsteps quickened. "There!" someone shouted. Ethan looked back. One of the men had rounded the corner. He wasn't running. He was reaching into his jacket. "Move!" Ethan shoved Alessandra forward. The fire escape door burst open under Marcus's weight. They spilled onto a metal landing 3 stories up. The ladder was old, rusted, but functional. "Down!" Marcus was already climbing. Alessandra went next. Ethan brought up the rear, slamming the door behind them. They were 2 floors down when the door above flew open again. One of the men appeared on the landing. He didn't climb down. He just watched them descend. And pulled out a phone. They hit the alley running. Ethan's truck was parked 2 blocks away. They sprinted through back streets, cutting between buildings, doubling back twice to make sure they weren't followed. By the time they reached the truck, all 3 of them were gasping. Ethan got behind the wheel. "Where now?" "Somewhere public," Marcus said. "Somewhere with cameras. Witnesses." "I know a place," Alessandra said. She directed Ethan to a coffee shop in Greenwich Village. Small, crowded, the kind of place where no one paid attention to anyone else. They grabbed a table in the back corner. Alessandra pulled out the USB drive, turned it over in her hands. "This is it," she said. "This is everything we need to take her down." "Except we're 3 people with no legal authority and a stolen USB drive," Marcus pointed out. "Catherine has lawyers, resources. She'll claim we fabricated the evidence. Then we go public, give it to the press, and get buried in lawsuits before the story even runs." Marcus shook his head. "We need to be smart about this." Ethan had been quiet, thinking. "What if you don't go after Catherine directly?" They both looked at him. "What do you mean?" Alessandra asked. "You said there's a CFO involved, Jonathan Rhodes, and probably other board members. They're all part of this." Ethan leaned forward. "So don't go after the whole conspiracy. Go after one person. Get them to flip." Marcus nodded slowly. "Divide and conquer." "Rhodes has the most to lose," Alessandra said. "He signed off on the transfers. His name is all over those emails. If he cooperates, testifies against Catherine, he could cut a deal, reduce sentence in exchange for evidence." Marcus was already thinking it through. "We'd need leverage, something to make him talk. We have the USB drive. That's evidence against him, not leverage for him." Marcus thought for a moment. What if we offer him immunity? Tell him the SEC is already involved. That his only chance is to cooperate before Catherine throws him under the bus. "Is the SEC involved?" Ethan asked. "No, but he doesn't know that." Alessandra looked uncertain. "That's a bluff. If he calls it, then we're no worse off than we are now." Marcus met her eyes. "But if it works, we get everything we need to stop Catherine." The coffee shop was warm, the smell of espresso thick in the air. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious. Ethan watched Alessandra wrestle with the decision. This wasn't his world: corporate espionage, financial crimes, high-stakes bluffs. He fixed generators and changed oil and tried to make rent. But looking at her now, he realized he'd already made his choice. The moment he'd pulled her from that burning car, he'd stepped into this. There was no walking away. "I'll do it," Alessandra said finally. "I'll contact Rhodes. Set up a meeting. Use my phone." Marcus slid his cell across the table. "Yours is compromised." Alessandra dialed. Put it on speaker. 3 rings. Then a man's voice, clipped and professional. "Jonathan Rhodes." "Jonathan, it's Alessandra." Silence. Long enough that Ethan thought he'd hung up. "Alessandra, we've been worried about you. Catherine said—" "I know what Catherine said. All lies." Her voice was ice. "I also know about the $200 million you've been moving offshore, the shell companies, the forged authorizations." Another pause. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. And so does the SEC. They've been investigating for 3 weeks. Forensic accountants, subpoenas, the whole thing. I found out yesterday." She was improvising now.
smooth as glass. The only reason I'm calling is because I thought you deserved a heads up before the indictments come down. This is insane. You can't prove, I don't need to prove anything. The SEC has everything. Bank records, email logs.
Your signature on every fraudulent transfer. Alessandra's voice dropped. But here's the thing, Jonathan. I might be able to help you if you're willing to cooperate. Cooperate how? Testimony against Catherine. Full disclosure of her role in the scheme. In exchange, I can talk to the prosecutors. Get you a reduced sentence, maybe even immunity if you're lucky. Rhodes was breathing hard on the other end. This is a setup. No. This is your one chance to get out before Catherine sacrifices you to save herself. You think she won't? You think when the investigation closes in, she won't claim you acted alone? That you forged her involvement? Silence. Meet me, Alessandra said. Tonight, 7 o'clock. We'll talk details. Just you and me. Where? She glanced at Marcus. He scribbled something on a napkin. Alessandra read it. Bryant Park. Near the fountain. Come alone, Jonathan. This is your last chance to do the right thing. She hung up before he could respond. Marcus took his phone back. Think he'll show? He'll show. He's terrified. Alessandra leaned back in her chair. Question is whether he'll bring backup. Then we bring ours, Ethan said. They both looked at him. You're not going alone, he continued. If this goes wrong, if Catherine finds out, I'll handle it. Like you handled the car crash? Alessandra's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. The rest of the afternoon blurred together. They moved between coffee shops and diners, never staying in one place too long. Marcus made calls to lawyers he trusted. Alessandra copied the USB drive, stashing duplicates in 3 different locations. Ethan called Mrs. Chen. I need one more night, he said. I'm sorry, I know it's a lot to ask. That child is fine here. Mrs. Chen's voice was stern but warm. You take care of what you need to take care of. But Ethan, be careful. Whatever you're into, it sounds dangerous. I will, thank you. He hung up, feeling like the worst father alive. By 6:30, they were in position at Bryant Park. The park was busy. Tourists, office workers cutting through, street performers. Marcus sat on a bench near the fountain, pretending to read a newspaper. Alessandra waited in the trees to the west, hoodie up, watching. Ethan stood by the Bryant Park Grill entrance, hands in his pockets, trying to look casual. At 6:58, Jonathan Rhodes appeared. He was younger than Ethan expected. Maybe 35, wire-rimmed glasses, expensive suit slightly wrinkled like he'd been wearing it too long. He looked around nervously. Alessandra stepped out from the trees. Rhodes saw her and walked over. They spoke quietly. Ethan couldn't hear the words, but he could read the body language. Rhodes was defensive, scared. Alessandra was calm, controlled. Then Rhodes pulled out his phone. Alessandra's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. They struggled briefly. The phone clattered to the ground. That's when Ethan saw them. 2 men in dark suits moving fast through the crowd, the same men from the server building. Alessandra! He shouted. She turned, saw them, grabbed Rhodes by the arm and ran. Ethan sprinted toward her. Marcus was already moving, intercepting one of the men with a shoulder check that sent them both sprawling. Ethan reached Alessandra. This way! They ran east, toward 5th Avenue. The evening crowd became their cover, bodies and noise and confusion. Behind them, shouting, the sound of a scuffle. Ethan didn't look back. He just ran, pulling Alessandra with him, Rhodes stumbling along beside her. They burst onto 5th Avenue. Taxis honked, pedestrians scattered. There! Alessandra pointed to a subway entrance. They plunged underground, taking the stairs 3 at a time. A train was already at the platform, doors closing. Ethan shoved his arm between them. They sprang open. All 3 of them tumbled inside just as the doors shut again. The train lurched into motion. Through the windows, Ethan saw one of the suited men reach the platform. He slammed a fist against the train car as they pulled away into the tunnel. Then he was gone. Ethan collapsed against the pole, gasping. Alessandra leaned against the doors, eyes closed. Rhodes sat on the floor, head in his hands. What the hell just happened? Rhodes's voice shook. Catherine sent people to kill us.
Alessandra said flatly. Welcome to the conspiracy. I didn't know. Save it. She crouched in front of him. You're in this now, all the way in, so you have a choice. Help us take her down or go down with her. Rhodes looked up. His glasses were askew, his face pale. What do you need from me? Everything, Alessandra said. Every email, every transaction, every conversation you ever had with Catherine about the money. All of it. And if I do? Then maybe you walk away from this without spending the next 20 years in federal prison. Rhodes closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something else. Resignation. Maybe even relief. Okay, he said. Okay, I'll do it. The train rattled through the tunnel, carrying them deeper into the city. Ethan watched the three of them, the billionaire, the CFO, the contractor, and wondered how the hell his life had come to this. But there was no turning back now. They were all in, and the real fight was just beginning. They got off at Penn Station and disappeared into the crowd. Rhodes was shaking so badly that Marcus had to grip his elbow to keep him upright. People streamed past them in every direction, commuters heading home, tourists dragging suitcases, vendors hawking pretzels and hot dogs. Ethan spotted a hotel across the street. Not fancy, just a mid-range chain with a lobby bar and automatic doors. There, he said. Marcus steered Rhodes toward it. Alessandra stayed close to Ethan, her hand brushing his arm like she needed the contact to stay grounded. Inside, the lobby was generic corporate comfort. Beige walls, potted plants, a bored clerk behind the desk scrolling through his phone. Marcus paid cash for a room on the 4th floor. The clerk didn't even look up. The room was small. 2 double beds, a bathroom the size of a closet, a window overlooking an air shaft. Rhodes collapsed onto the nearest bed and put his head in his hands. They were going to kill me, he said. His voice was hollow. In the park. If you hadn't been there, but we were. Alessandra pulled a chair from the corner and sat facing him. Now talk. Start from the beginning. Rhodes looked up. His glasses had a crack in one lens. It started 6 months ago. Catherine came to me with a proposal. She said Alessandra was planning to sell the company, that she'd been in talks with a Chinese conglomerate, and the deal would destroy American jobs, tank the stock, ruin everything Marcus Varelli built. That's a lie, Alessandra said flatly. I know that now. But she was convincing. She had documents, fake emails from you discussing terms, projections showing how the sale would gut the company. Rhodes wiped his face. She said we needed to protect the legacy, move critical assets offshore before the sale went through. Preservation, she called it. Embezzlement, Marcus corrected. I know what it was. I knew even then, deep down. But she made it sound noble, patriotic almost. Rhodes laughed bitterly. And she promised me a seat on the new board once Alessandra was gone. CFO of the restructured company, triple my salary. Ethan leaned against the wall. So you helped her steal $200 million for a promotion. I helped her steal $217 million for the delusion that I was doing the right thing. Rhodes met his eyes. I'm not proud of it, but yeah, that's what happened. Alessandra's expression was unreadable. Who else was involved? David Chen from legal. He drafted the Shell Company paperwork. Monica Reeves from operations. She helped forge your signature on the authorization forms. And Catherine's assistant, Peter somebody. He coordinated everything. Scheduled meetings, moved documents, made sure no one asked questions. 4 people plus Catherine, Marcus said. That's a tight conspiracy. Small enough to control, large enough to execute. Alessandra stood and paced to the window. Her reflection stared back at her in the darkening glass. What was the endgame? After the money was moved, after I was removed? What then? Rhodes hesitated. Tell me, Alessandra said. Catherine was going to announce your resignation. Mental health reasons. The board would appoint her as interim CEO. Within 6 months, she'd make it permanent. He paused. The car crash. That wasn't supposed to happen. At least, not that I knew about. Catherine told us you'd step down voluntarily once she presented evidence of your instability. When I heard about the accident this morning, I thought, you thought it was real, Alessandra finished, that I'd actually lost control. Until your phone call, then I knew. Rhodes stood, his legs unsteady. She's going to kill me. Once she finds out I talked to you, I'm dead. Not if we move first. Alessandra turned from the window. You're going to give us everything. Access codes, email accounts, phone records, every piece of evidence that ties Catherine to the fraud. And then what? You take it to the police? Better. Marcus pulled out his phone. We take it to the FBI. Rhodes's eyes widened. The FBI? Wire fraud across state lines.
That's federal jurisdiction, and I happen to know someone in the white-collar crime division.
Marcus was already scrolling through contacts. Angela Reeves. We went to law school together. She owes me a favor. Will she take the case? Ethan asked. If the evidence is solid, she won't have a choice. This is career-making stuff. Multi-million-dollar corporate fraud, attempted murder. Marcus looked at Alessandra. But we need airtight documentation. Everything Rhodes can give us, plus the data from your USB drive. Alessandra pulled the drive from her pocket and handed it to him. Start copying. We need redundancy. Cloud backups, physical copies, everything. While Marcus worked on his laptop, Alessandra sat beside Rhodes and walked him through every transaction, every email, every conversation he could remember. Ethan listened from the corner, trying to keep track of names and numbers that blurred together into a portrait of methodical theft. An hour passed. Then 2. Ethan's phone buzzed. Mrs. Chen. He stepped into the bathroom and answered. Hey, Lila's asking for you. Mrs. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. I told her you're working. She wants to know when you're coming home. Ethan closed his eyes. The exhaustion hit him all at once. 36 hours of adrenaline and fear and chaos, and underneath it all, the gnawing guilt that he was failing the one person who mattered most. Tomorrow, he said. Tell her tomorrow for sure. You'd better mean that. I do. He hung up and stared at himself in the mirror. 2 days ago, his biggest worry was making rent. Now he was caught up in a federal case involving hundreds of millions of dollars, and people who thought murder was an acceptable business strategy. When he came out, Marcus was on the phone with his FBI contact. Alessandra and Rhodes were still going through documents. Nobody looked at Ethan. He felt invisible, like he'd stumbled into someone else's life and was just taking up space. Marcus ended the call. She'll see us tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., FBI field office in Manhattan. But she wants preliminary evidence tonight, something to justify opening an investigation. Send her the transaction records, Alessandra said. The offshore accounts, the shell companies, everything we pulled from the server. Already done. She's reviewing them now. Marcus checked his watch. We should get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Rhodes looked terrified. What about me? Where do I go? You stay here, Marcus said. Don't leave this room. Don't call anyone. Don't even think about running, because if you do, Catherine will find you before we do. And if she finds me anyway? Nobody had an answer for that. They ordered room service, sandwiches and coffee that tasted like cardboard, and ate in silence. Rhodes took one of the beds and curled up facing the wall. Marcus stretched out on the other, still fully dressed, and closed his eyes. Alessandra sat in the chair by the window, arms wrapped around herself. Ethan sat on the floor beside her. You should sleep, he said quietly. Can't. When's the last time you did? She thought about it. I don't remember. Outside, the city hummed, sirens in the distance, the rumble of traffic, voices from the street below. Thank you, Alessandra said after a while. Ethan looked up at her. For what? For not walking away. You could have, multiple times. But you didn't. Yeah, well, I'm an idiot. She almost smiled. You're not. You're just... She paused, searching for the word. Decent. In a way most people aren't. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just sat there, shoulder against the wall, watching her watch the window. I keep thinking about my father, she said, about what he'd do if he were here. He was ruthless when he needed to be, cutthroat. He built an empire by outmaneuvering people who thought they were smarter than him. You think he'd be disappointed in you? I think he'd be disappointed that I let Catherine get this close. Alessandra's jaw tightened. He never trusted her. Told me that before he died. Said she married him for the money and the status, and the moment he was gone, she'd make her move. I didn't listen. You were grieving. I was naive. She looked at him. I wanted to believe people were better than they are, that family meant something, that loyalty existed. It does exist, just not where you were looking for it. Alessandra held his gaze for a moment. Then she looked away, back to the window. Ethan must have dozed off, because the next thing he knew, Marcus was shaking his shoulder. It's time, Marcus said. The clock on the nightstand read 8:17 a.m. Ethan scrambled to his feet, disoriented. Alessandra was already up, splashing water on her face in the bathroom. Rhodes sat on the edge of the bed, looking like a man on his way to the gallows. They took 2 cabs to the FBI field office. Ethan rode with Alessandra and Rhodes, while Marcus went ahead to coordinate with his contact. The federal building was all concrete and security checkpoints. They passed through metal detectors, surrendered their phones, and were escorted to a conference room on the 3rd floor. Special Agent Angela Reeves was waiting for them. She was younger than Ethan expected, maybe 40, sharp-eyed, wearing a blazer and slacks. She shook hands with Alessandra, nodded to Rhodes, and gave Ethan a curious glance before dismissing him as unimportant. Marcus briefed me on the basics, she said, sitting at the head of the table. But I want to hear it from you, Ms. Varelli. Start from the beginning. Alessandra did. She spoke clearly, methodically, walking through the timeline. The lockout, the car crash, the discovery of the embezzlement, Rhodes's confession. She didn't embellish, didn't dramatize, just laid out the facts like she was presenting a quarterly report. Agent Reeves listened without interrupting. When Alessandra finished, she turned to Rhodes. And you're willing to testify against Catherine Varelli and the others involved? Rhodes swallowed hard. Yes. In exchange for? Immunity, or the closest thing to it you can offer. That's not my call. The U.S. Attorney's Office decides deals, but I can tell you this, cooperation helps. A lot. Reeves opened a folder and pulled out a stack of printouts. I reviewed the documents Marcus sent over, the transaction records, the email chains, the forged signatures. It's compelling, but I need corroboration, third-party verification, bank statements, testimony from employees who witnessed suspicious activity, anything that places Catherine at the center of this. I have access to the company servers, Alessandra said. I can get you everything. Not legally, you can't. Not without a warrant. Reeves leaned back. Here's what's going to happen. I'm opening a preliminary investigation based on what you've given me. I'll present the evidence to a federal judge and request subpoenas for Varelli Technologies' financial records, email servers, and personnel files. If the judge agrees, we move forward. If not, Catherine walks. Marcus finished. If not, we need more evidence before we can proceed. Reeves looked at Alessandra. In the meantime, you need to stay out of sight. Catherine knows you're alive. She knows you have information. That makes you a target. I'm not hiding. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm telling you not to die before we can build a case. Reeves's voice was firm. These people have already tried to kill you once. Don't give them another chance. Alessandra's hands clenched on the table, but she nodded. What about me? Rhodes asked. Protective custody. We'll move you to a safe location until we're ready to proceed. Reeves signaled to an agent standing by the door. Agent Morris will take you now. Rhodes stood, his face pale. He looked at Alessandra. I'm sorry for all of it. Alessandra didn't respond, just watched as he was led out of the room. When the door closed, Reeves turned back to them. I'll move as fast as I can, but federal investigations take time, weeks, maybe months. We don't have months, Alessandra interrupted. Catherine's moving money, covering tracks. Every day we wait is another day she has to erase evidence. Then we'd better hope the judge sees it that way. Reeves stood. I'll be in touch. Marcus has my number. Until then, stay low. Stay safe. They left the federal building in silence. On the sidewalk, Manhattan rushed past them. Delivery trucks, suited professionals, tourists with cameras. Normal people living normal lives. Ethan felt like he'd been underwater for 2 days and just surfaced into a world that didn't make sense anymore. Now what? He asked. Marcus checked his phone. I've got a friend with a place in Brooklyn, small apartment, off the grid. You two can stay there while the FBI does its thing. And you? Alessandra asked. I need to stay visible. Go to work, maintain appearances. If I disappear, Catherine will know something's wrong.
Marcus met her eyes. She can't know we're working with the FBI. Not yet. That's dangerous. So is everything else we've done in the last 48 hours? He smiled grimly. I'll be fine. They walked to the subway, took the train to Brooklyn. Marcus's friend's apartment was in a converted warehouse in Red Hook, industrial, sparsely furnished, with exposed brick and windows that overlooked the water. Marcus handed Alessandra a key. Fridge is stocked. Wi-Fi passwords on the router. Don't answer the door for anyone. Thank you, Alessandra said. Marcus pulled her into a hug, whispered something Ethan couldn't hear. Then he left. The apartment felt too quiet after he was gone. Alessandra walked to the window and stared out at the gray expanse of the harbor. Ethan dropped onto the couch, every muscle in his body screaming. You should go home, Alessandra said without turning around. Excuse me? Your daughter needs you. You've done more than enough. There's no reason for you to stay. Ethan sat up. Are you serious? I'm giving you an out. Take it. An out. He stood, anger flaring. You think I'm here because I'm trapped? Because I don't have a choice? Aren't you? She turned to face him. You're a single father with a business to run and a kid who's been waiting for you to come home for 2 days. What are you doing here, Ethan? Really? I'm here because you need help. I have help. The FBI. Marcus. I don't need you to... To what? Care whether you live or die? He crossed the room. You want me to leave? Fine, I'll leave. But don't pretend you're doing me a favor. Don't act like pushing people away makes you stronger. Alessandra's face was a mask. You don't know me. I know enough. I know you've been alone so long you think it's normal, that you measure relationships and transactions and contracts because that's safer than admitting you need someone. Ethan grabbed his jacket from the couch. I pulled you out of a burning car because it was the right thing to do. I'm staying because it's still the right thing. But if you want to sit here alone and convince yourself that's strength instead of fear, be my guest. He was halfway to the door when she spoke. Wait. He stopped, didn't turn around. I'm scared, Alessandra said quietly. I'm terrified, and I don't know how to do this. How to let people in without worrying they'll betray me or leave or use what I give them against me. Everyone in my life has either wanted something from me or wanted me gone. So yeah, I push people away. Because at least then I control when they leave. Ethan turned around. She was still standing by the window, arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. You're right, she continued, about all of it. I'm alone because I make myself alone, but I don't know how to be different. Ethan set his jacket down, walked back across the room, stopped in front of her. You start by not kicking out the one person who's stayed, he said. Alessandra looked up at him. Her eyes were wet. Why are you staying? Because someone should. He paused. And because maybe I need this too. Need to feel like I'm doing something that matters, that I'm not just barely keeping my head above water. She nodded slowly. So we're both broken. Probably. Good to know. For the first time since he'd met her, Alessandra smiled, really smiled. It transformed her face, made her look younger, softer, human. Ethan smiled back. They stood there for a moment. Then Alessandra stepped forward and hugged him. It was awkward. Neither of them was good at it. But it was real. Thank you, she whispered, for staying. You're welcome. They ordered Chinese food for dinner, sat on the floor eating lo mein straight from the containers while the sun set over the harbor. They talked about nothing important. Favorite movies, worst jobs, embarrassing childhood stories. Normal things. Human things. Ethan told her about the time he'd accidentally locked himself in a client's basement while fixing their water heater and had to call the fire department to get out. Alessandra told him about the time she'd given a keynote speech at a tech conference with her dress tucked into her underwear for the first 10 minutes. They laughed. Actually laughed. It felt good. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen with a photo of Lila holding up a drawing, stick figures labeled me and Daddy, holding hands under a yellow sun. His chest tightened. Show me, Alessandra said. He turned the phone toward her. She looked at the drawing for a long moment. She's beautiful, she said. Yeah, she is. You're a good father, Ethan. I hope you know that. I'm trying to be. That's all anyone can do.
His phone buzzed again, this time a call. Marcus. Ethan answered. Hey, we have a problem. Marcus's voice was tight. The judge denied the subpoenas, said there wasn't enough evidence to justify a federal investigation without more corroboration. Ethan's stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means the FBI can't move forward. Not yet. They need more proof before they can touch Catherine. Alessandra had heard. Her face went pale. How much more? Testimony from other employees, documents that haven't been digitally tampered with, something concrete that ties Catherine directly to the conspiracy. Marcus paused. Agent Reeves is trying to find another angle, but it could take weeks. We don't have weeks, Alessandra said. I know. Ethan looked at her, saw the determination hardening in her eyes. Then we get it ourselves, she said. Alessandra, I'm going back into Virelli Technologies, tonight. That's insane, Marcus said through the phone. They'll be watching for you. The moment you walk through that door, I'm not going through the door. Alessandra was already moving, pacing the apartment. There's a maintenance entrance in the sub-basement. Contractors use it for equipment deliveries. It's not monitored after hours. How do you know? Because I approved the security budget that decided not to monitor it. She grabbed the USB drive from the counter. I can get in, access the physical servers, pull hard copies of the financial records before Catherine can delete them. And if you get caught? Ethan asked. Alessandra looked at him. Then at least I tried. Marcus was silent for a moment. Then, if you're doing this, you're not doing it alone. I'll meet you there, midnight. But Ethan, you stay out of this. You've done enough. Not a chance, Ethan said. This isn't your fight. It became my fight the moment I pulled her out of that car. Ethan stood. I'm going. Alessandra opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, nodded. Midnight, Marcus said. And Ethan, if this goes wrong, get her out, no matter what. I will. The line went dead. They spent the next few hours planning. Alessandra drew a map of the building from memory, marking access points and security camera blind spots. Ethan checked his truck, made sure the tank was full, the tires good. At 11:30, they left. The drive to Manhattan was tense. Neither of them spoke much. Just watched the city lights blur past the windows. They parked 3 blocks from Virelli Technologies and walked the rest of the way. The streets were quieter at this hour, just a few late-night stragglers and the occasional cab. Marcus was waiting in the alley behind the building. He handed Alessandra a key card. Contractor access, he said, should get you into the sub-basement. Where'd you get this? Don't ask questions you don't want answered. He looked at Ethan. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Marcus almost smiled. All right, let's go. The maintenance entrance was a metal door half hidden behind a dumpster. Alessandra swiped the card. The lock clicked. They were in. The sub-basement was a maze of pipes and electrical conduits. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly yellow. Their footsteps echoed on concrete. Alessandra led the way. She moved with confidence, like she'd memorized every turn. They reached a stairwell, climbed 3 flights. At the top, another locked door. Alessandra swiped the card again. It didn't work. She tried again. Still nothing. They must have deactivated contractor access after hours, Marcus said. Ethan looked around, spotted a ventilation grate in the wall. What about that? Alessandra followed his gaze. The ductwork runs through the whole building. If we can get into the system, we can bypass the locks. Ethan was already moving. He pulled a multi-tool from his pocket and went to work on the screws. The grate came off. Inside, the duct was narrow, but passable. I'll go, Alessandra said. You sure? I know the layout. She pulled off her jacket and crawled inside. Ethan and Marcus waited in the stairwell. Minutes dragged past. Then a click. The door swung open. Alessandra stood there, covered in dust, grinning. Come on. They were in. The server room was on the 5th floor. They took the service elevator, no cameras, meant for maintenance staff. When the doors opened, the hallway was empty. Alessandra led them to a nondescript door marked Data Storage. Inside, the servers hummed quietly in their racks. Alessandra moved to a terminal and logged in. I'm pulling everything, she said. Transaction logs, email archives, personnel records. All of it. Marcus kept watch by the door.
Ethan stood beside Alessandra, watching lines of data scroll across the screen. 5 minutes passed. 10. How long? Marcus whispered. Almost done. Just a few more. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. And then they heard it. Footsteps. Multiple people, coming down the hallway. They know we're here, Marcus said. Alessandra's fingers flew across the keyboard. Just need 30 more seconds. The door burst open. 2 security guards rushed in. Behind them, a figure in an expensive coat. Catherine Varelli. She looked at Alessandra with an expression of cold satisfaction. Hello, stepdaughter, she said. I've been waiting for you. Ethan's first instinct was to move in front of Alessandra. His body reacted before his brain caught up, positioning himself between her and the guards. Behind him, he heard the soft click of the USB drive being ejected from the terminal. Catherine stepped into the server room like she owned it, which Ethan supposed she thought she did. She was in her late 50s, blonde hair pulled back tight, wearing a camel coat that probably cost more than his truck. But it was her eyes that got him, cold, calculating, empty of anything resembling warmth. You've caused quite a bit of trouble, Catherine said, her gaze fixed on Alessandra. I have to admit, I'm impressed you survived the crash. That driver was one of my best. So you admit it, Alessandra said. Her voice was steady, but Ethan could feel her trembling behind him. You tried to have me killed. Tried? Catherine laughed. It was a brittle sound. My dear, I succeeded. The old you, the naive girl who thought family loyalty meant something, she died in that car. What crawled out is just a ghost making noise. One of the guards moved forward. Marcus stepped to intercept him, but the second guard was faster. He grabbed Marcus's arm, twisted it behind his back. Marcus grunted in pain but didn't cry out. Let him go, Alessandra said. Or what? Catherine tilted her head. You'll call the police? The FBI? Please, I've been 3 steps ahead of you since this started. Jonathan Rhodes is in federal custody spinning whatever story keeps him out of prison. The evidence you've collected is inadmissible, obtained through illegal access to private servers. And as for witnesses, she gestured to the guards. These gentlemen will testify that you broke into this building with the intent to steal proprietary information. That's not what happened, Ethan said. Catherine looked at him for the first time, really looked at him. Her lip curled slightly. And who are you? The help? He's the man who saved my life when your people tried to end it, Alessandra said. She stepped out from behind Ethan. His name is Ethan Cole, and he's worth 10 of you. How touching, Catherine's voice dripped with contempt. You always did have a weakness for strays. Your father was the same way, picking up broken things and convincing himself they had value. Don't talk about my father. Why not? He's the reason we're here. Marcus Varelli, brilliant engineer, terrible husband, worse father. Catherine's smile was razor sharp. He built an empire and forgot to build a family, left you starving for his approval while he chased the next big contract. And when he finally realized what he'd done, when he finally tried to make amends in his will, it was too little too late. He left me the company because I earned it. He left you the company because he felt guilty. Catherine took a step closer. But guilt doesn't build legacies, Alessandra. Power does. Control does. And you've never had either. You've been playing at being CEO while the real decisions happened around you. The board meetings you weren't invited to, the contracts signed without your approval. Did you really think you were in charge? Alessandra's jaw tightened. I know what you've been doing. The offshore accounts, the shell companies. The 200 million you've stolen. Stolen? Catherine laughed again. I've been protecting company assets from your incompetence. Every dollar I moved was to prevent you from running this company into the ground. That's a lie. Is it? Let's ask the board. Let's ask the shareholders. Let's ask anyone who matters whether they trust you or me. Catherine's voice dropped. You lost this fight before it started. The only question now is how gracefully you exit. The guard holding Marcus tightened his grip. Marcus's face went pale, but his eyes stayed locked on Catherine. There's still a way out of this, Catherine continued. Sign a resignation letter. Cite personal health reasons. Walk away with your dignity intact and a generous severance package. I'll even let you keep your trust fund. And if I refuse? Then we do this the hard way. Criminal charges for corporate espionage. A very public trial where every mistake you've made, every failure, every moment of weakness gets dissected by lawyers and broadcast on the evening news. Your father's legacy gets dragged through the mud. The company's stock tanks. Employees lose their jobs. All because you couldn't accept that you weren't cut out for this. Alessandra was silent. Ethan could see her mind working, calculating odds, weighing options. Behind her, the server terminal's screen had gone dark. The download was complete. The USB drive was in her pocket, but they were trapped. You have until morning to decide, Catherine said. Sign the letter or face the consequences. She nodded to the guards. Escort them out, and make sure they understand. Any attempt to contact authorities, any public statements, any deviation from my instructions, and things get very unpleasant very quickly. The guard released Marcus, shoving him forward. The other guard gestured toward the door. They had no choice. They walked. Catherine followed them to the elevator, her heels clicking on the polished floor. In the confined space, Ethan could smell her perfume, something expensive and cloying. One more thing, Catherine said as the doors began to close. She looked directly at Ethan. Your daughter. Lila, isn't it? 5 years old. Attends Riverside Elementary. Such a sweet child. Ethan's blood went cold. Touch her, he said quietly, and I'll kill you. Catherine smiled. Empty threats from empty men. How predictable. The doors slid shut on her face. The elevator descended in silence. When they reached the ground floor, the guards walked them to the lobby and watched until they exited onto the street. The night air hit Ethan like a slap. His hands were shaking. The rage was so intense he could barely breathe. Marcus grabbed his arm. We need to move, now. They walked quickly, heads down, until they were blocks away from the building. Only then did Alessandra stop, leaning against a brick wall and pulling out the USB drive. Did you get it? Marcus asked. Everything. Financial records, emails, personnel files, enough to bury her 10 times over. Alessandra's hand closed around the drive. But she's right about one thing. We obtained it illegally. No court will touch it. The FBI, Marcus started, won't move without a warrant. We've been through this. Alessandra pushed off the wall. We need a different approach. She threatened Lila, Ethan said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, flat, distant. She knows where my daughter goes to school. Alessandra turned to him. I'm sorry, I never should have. Don't. He cut her off. Don't apologize. This isn't your fault. It's hers. He looked at both of them. But I need to get Lila somewhere safe, tonight. Go, Marcus said. We'll figure out the next move. No. Alessandra's voice was firm. We all go. We regroup somewhere Catherine can't find us. Somewhere we can think. They took Ethan's truck back to Brooklyn, then immediately left again. Marcus made calls while Ethan drove, finding them a motel outside the city, the kind of place that took cash and didn't ask questions. While they drove, Ethan called Mrs. Chen. I need you to do something for me, he said. Pack a bag for Lila, essentials only. I'm coming to get her in 20 minutes. Ethan, what's happening? I can't explain right now, but please, trust me. There was a pause. Then, I'll have her ready. Lila was half asleep when Ethan carried her to the truck. She wrapped her arms around his neck, her face pressed against his shoulder. Daddy, where are we going? On an adventure, sweetheart, just for a few days. Is Mrs. Chen coming? Not this time, but you'll meet some new friends. In the back seat, Alessandra watched them with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. When Lila noticed her, she perked up. Who are you? I'm Alessandra, she said softly. Your dad's been helping me. Are you in trouble? A little bit, but your dad's very brave. He's been taking care of me. Lila considered this. Daddy takes care of everyone. He's good at it. Alessandra smiled. Yes, he is. The motel was in Jersey, a faded roadside place with flickering neon and a vending machine that only worked half the time. Marcus paid for 2 adjoining rooms. They got Lila settled in one room. Ethan tucked her into bed, told her a story about a princess and a dragon that he made up as he went along. By the time he finished, she was asleep. In the connecting room, Marcus and Alessandra were going through the data from the USB drive on Marcus's laptop. The problem isn't evidence, Marcus said.
It's how we present it. Every piece we have was obtained without authorization. Any lawyer worth their retainer will get it thrown out. Then we don't go through lawyers. Alessandra was pacing. We go around them. Meaning what? Meaning we leak it, give it to journalists, let the press do what the courts won't. That's risky, Marcus said. Catherine will sue for defamation, claim the documents are fabricated. Without official verification, we don't need official verification. We just need enough public pressure that the authorities have no choice but to investigate. Alessandra stopped pacing. Think about it. $200 million in offshore accounts, shell companies, forged signatures. Even if half of it gets dismissed as allegations, the other half will stick. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, listening. Who would you leak it to? Someone with credibility, someone Catherine can't intimidate or buy off. Alessandra pulled out her phone, a burner Marcus had picked up earlier. I know a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, Sarah Chen. She's covered white-collar crime for years. If anyone will run this story, it's her. And if she doesn't, then we try the New York Times, the Washington Post, Bloomberg. We keep trying until someone bites. Alessandra's eyes were hard. Catherine thinks she can control the narrative. We're going to prove her wrong. Marcus nodded slowly. It could work, but we need to move fast. Once the story breaks, Catherine will go into damage control mode. Destroy evidence, silence witnesses, spin it as a disgruntled former CEO making false accusations. Which is why we send the evidence to multiple outlets simultaneously. Alessandra was already opening her email on Marcus's laptop. Sarah Chen gets the exclusive. But we CC copies to 5 other major publications with an embargo. If Chen doesn't run it within 24 hours, they can. That's playing hardball, Marcus said. Catherine played hardball first. We're just leveling the field. Ethan watched her work. This was a different Alessandra than the one he'd pulled from the burning car. Sharper, harder, more focused. She typed rapidly, attaching files, crafting an email that laid out the entire conspiracy in clinical detail. Done, she said, hovering over the send button. Once I hit this, there's no going back. Then don't go back, Ethan said. She looked at him. He nodded. Alessandra hit send. The rest of the night crawled by. None of them could sleep. They took turns checking the windows, listening for sounds that didn't belong. Marcus kept refreshing his email, waiting for a response from Sarah Chen. It came at 4:47 a.m. She's in, Marcus said. She wants to meet, says she'll have her legal team review the documents, but if they check out, she'll run the story tomorrow evening. Alessandra exhaled. Where does she want to meet? Coffee shop in Tribeca, 9 a.m. That gives us 4 hours. Alessandra looked at Ethan. You should stay here, with Lila. Not a chance. Ethan, we've had this argument. You lost last time too. He stood. Lila's safe here. The room's paid for in cash, registered under a fake name. Nobody knows we're here. She needs her father. She needs her father to finish what he started. Ethan grabbed his jacket. I'm going. Alessandra looked like she wanted to argue, but she just nodded. They left at 8, after Ethan woke Lila and explained that he'd be gone for a few hours. Will you be back for lunch? She asked. I'll try, sweetheart. Promise? He kissed her forehead. I promise. Mrs. Chen had agreed to come stay with Lila. Ethan had called her from a payphone, given her the address, sworn her to secrecy. She arrived just as they were leaving, taking one look at Ethan's face and pulling him into a hug. Be careful, she said. Always am. The coffee shop was crowded with the morning rush. Sarah Chen was waiting at a corner table, mid-40s, Asian American, wearing jeans and a blazer. She had the look of someone who'd spent too many nights chasing stories and not enough sleeping. Alessandra slid into the seat across from her. Marcus and Ethan stood nearby, keeping watch. You've put me in an interesting position, Chen said without preamble. The documents you sent are explosive. If they're real, they're real. I'm sure you believe that, but belief isn't verification. Chen pulled out a tablet. My team's been up all night running the numbers, cross-referencing bank records, tracking shell companies, analyzing metadata, and here's what we found. The transactions are real. The offshore accounts exist. The forged signatures match known samples of your handwriting.
Because Catherine had someone forge them. So you say. But proving that requires more than just your word. Chen leaned forward. Here's my problem. You're a CEO who was just forced out of your own company. You have motive to fabricate evidence. Your stepmother claims you've been erratic, unstable. Without independent corroboration, I have independent corroboration. Jonathan Rhodes. He's in FBI custody right now, and he'll testify to everything. Chen's expression didn't change. I spoke to the FBI. They confirmed Rhodes is cooperating, but they won't share details of his testimony. And his lawyer issued a statement saying he's being coerced by a vindictive former colleague. Alessandra's face went pale. That's a lie. Maybe, but it's his word against yours, and right now his word comes with a very expensive legal team behind it. Chen closed the tablet. I want to run this story, but my editors need more. Witnesses who saw the conspiracy in action, internal memos that haven't been digitally altered. Something that proves this isn't just a family feud dressed up as financial fraud. What about the crash? Ethan spoke up. Someone ran Alessandra off the road. That's attempted murder, which the police are calling a single car accident. Driver fled the scene. No witnesses, no evidence of foul play. Chen looked at him. You're Ethan Cole, right? The man who pulled her from the wreck? Yeah. Your testimony helps, but it doesn't prove the crash was intentional, and it doesn't connect it to Catherine Varelli. Alessandra stood abruptly. So that's it? She wins because she's better at covering her tracks? She wins because she's been planning this longer than you've been fighting it. Chen's voice wasn't unkind. Look, I believe you. Personally. But belief doesn't sell papers, and it doesn't hold up in court. You need a smoking gun. Something undeniable. Like what? Like Catherine herself admitting what she's done. Like a witness who breaks ranks. Like physical evidence that ties her directly to the crime. Chen stood as well. Get me that, and I'll run a front-page story that ends her. Until then, my hands are tied. She left cash on the table and walked out. Alessandra watched her go, then turned to Marcus. She's right. We need more. We've given her everything we have. Then we get what we don't have. Alessandra's eyes were bright with something dangerous. We make Catherine admit it, on record. How? Ethan asked. By giving her exactly what she wants. They went back to the motel. Alessandra sat on the bed, staring at nothing, while Marcus and Ethan waited for her to explain. Finally, she spoke. Catherine wants me to sign a resignation letter, to go away quietly. Alessandra looked up. So that's what I'm going to do. That's insane, Marcus said. No, it's perfect. Think about it. Catherine's confident right now. She thinks she's won. She'll let her guard down. Alessandra's voice gained strength. I'll tell her I'll sign the letter, but I want a face-to-face meeting, just the two of us, to discuss terms. She won't agree to that. Yes, she will, because she'll want to gloat, to see me broken. Alessandra pulled out the burner phone. And when she does, I'll be wearing a wire. I'll get her to admit everything, the embezzlement, the crash, all of it. Ethan shook his head. That's too dangerous. If she suspects, she won't. She thinks I'm defeated, desperate. She'll believe I'm just trying to negotiate the best possible exit. Alessandra was already dialing. Marcus, you know people in law enforcement. Can you get me a recording device? Something small, professional grade. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I can make a call. Do it. Set up the meeting for tonight. Somewhere public but private, a restaurant, her office, anywhere she feels in control. Alessandra, Ethan started. This is the only way. She met his eyes. We're out of options, out of time. This is how we end it. Marcus made the calls. By noon, he had a wire, a tiny device that clipped to a bra strap and recorded through a microphone the size of a pencil eraser. By 1, he'd arranged the meeting with Catherine through intermediaries. 8 p.m. at a private dining room in a 5-star Manhattan restaurant. They spent the afternoon preparing. Alessandra practiced her approach, defeated but not broken, willing to negotiate but maintaining dignity. Marcus coached her on what questions to ask, how to guide the conversation toward admission without being obvious. Ethan just watched and worried. At 6, Alessandra started getting ready. She borrowed a dress from a shop nearby. Simple, black, appropriate for a business dinner. Marcus helped her fit the wire, testing it 3 times to make sure it was working.
You don't have to do this, Ethan said when they were alone. Alessandra was checking her appearance in the mirror. Yes, I do. There has to be another way. If there was, we'd have found it by now. She turned to face him. I'm tired, Ethan. Tired of running. Tired of being afraid. This ends tonight, one way or another. And if it goes wrong, then you get Lila somewhere safe. You take the evidence to every news outlet you can find. You make sure the story gets told. She stepped closer. Promise me. Alessandra said, Promise me. He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her this was too risky, too dangerous, that losing wasn't worth dying over. But looking at her face, he understood. This wasn't about winning or losing. This was about taking back control, about refusing to be a victim. I promise, he said. She smiled, leaned up and kissed his cheek. Thank you for everything.
Then she was gone, walking out the door with Marcus, leaving Ethan alone with his fear and the slowly ticking clock. The restaurant was called Le Bernardin, the kind of place where reservations were made months in advance and the dress code was enforced like law. Alessandra walked in at exactly 8 p.m., her heels clicking on marble floors. Catherine was already seated in the private dining room. She'd ordered wine. 2 glasses sat on the table, though Alessandra noticed only one had been touched. Punctual as always, Catherine said. Sit. Alessandra sat. The wire felt cold against her skin. I assume you've thought about my offer, Catherine continued. I have. I'm willing to resign, but I have conditions. Catherine's smile was thin. Of course you do. Let's hear them. I want a severance package, 50 million. Absurd. You'll get 10. 30. And a non-disclosure agreement that prevents you from disparaging me publicly. Catherine considered. 25. And the NDA is mutual. You don't talk about me. I don't talk about you. Fine. I also want my personal belongings from the office. My father's watch, his notebooks. Sentimental trash. Take it. Catherine sipped her wine. Is that all? One more thing. I want to know why. Catherine raised an eyebrow. Why what? Why you did this. The embezzlement, the conspiracy, trying to have me killed. Was it really just about the money? It's always about the money. Catherine set down her glass. But if you want the truth, it was about respect. Your father treated me like a trophy wife. A pretty thing to show off at charity galas while he poured his heart into a company and a daughter who never appreciated him. I gave him the best years of my life, and what did I get? A prenup that paid me pennies while you inherited billions. So you stole it. I took what I was owed, what I earned by standing beside a man who loved his work more than he loved anyone. Catherine's voice was cold. And yes, when you became an obstacle, I removed you, or tried to. Your survival was inconvenient, but ultimately it changes nothing. You're signing that letter, walking away, and I'm taking what should have been mine from the start. Alessandra's heart was pounding. The wire was getting all of it. The car crash, she said carefully. That was your idea? Of course. Clean, efficient, no body, no questions. Catherine leaned forward. The driver was supposed to make it look like an accident. Run you off the road, watch the car burn, disappear. Simple. But somehow you survived, and then you had to go and cause all this trouble. By refusing to die quietly. By refusing to accept reality. You're not cut out for this, Alessandra. You never were. Your father knew it. The board knows it. The only person who doesn't seem to know it is you. Catherine's smile was razor sharp. But that's about to change. You'll sign the letter, announce your resignation tomorrow, and in 6 months no one will remember you were ever CEO. Alessandra stood. You're right about one thing. This ends tomorrow. I'm glad you've finally seen reason. I've seen exactly what I needed to see. Alessandra walked to the door, turned back. Enjoy your wine, Catherine. It's the last peaceful evening you're going to have for a very long time. Catherine's expression flickered. What are you talking about? But Alessandra was already gone. Outside, Marcus was waiting in a car. Alessandra climbed in, her hands shaking as she unclipped the wire. Did you get it? Marcus asked. Every word. They drove straight to Sarah Chen's apartment.
She answered the door in sweatpants and a Columbia hoodie, looking annoyed until she saw their faces. "We have your smoking gun," Alessandra said. They played the recording in Chen's living room. The journalist listened in silence, her expression neutral until Catherine's voice came through the speakers admitting to embezzlement, conspiracy, and attempted murder. When it finished, Chen sat back. "This is it," she said quietly. "This is the story." "How fast can you run it?" Marcus asked. "Online edition goes up in 2 hours. Print tomorrow morning." Chen was already reaching for her phone. "But I need to make calls, get legal clearance, verify the recording's authenticity. We don't have time for, you want this to stick or you want it to get torn apart by Catherine's lawyers." Chen's voice was firm. "Give me 2 hours. That's all I need." They gave her 2 hours. Ethan met them back at the motel, Lila asleep in his arms. When Alessandra walked in, he saw it in her face. "We got her," she said. He closed his eyes. "Thank the—" He stopped himself. "We did it." "Not yet, but soon." They waited, ordered pizza that no one ate, watched the clock tick toward midnight. At 11:43 p.m., Marcus's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then at Alessandra. "It's live," he said. They crowded around his laptop. The Wall Street Journal's homepage loaded. The headline was simple: Virelli Technologies CEO accused of $217 million embezzlement, attempted murder. Below it, the full story. Every detail, every piece of evidence. And embedded in the article, an audio player with the restaurant recording. Alessandra read the first paragraph, then the second. Her hand covered her mouth. "It's real," she whispered. "It's actually real." Marcus was already getting texts. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Other news outlets picking up the story. Social media exploding. Within an hour, it was trending nationwide. By morning, Catherine Virelli's world would be in ruins, and Alessandra would finally be free. The first call came at 6:23 a.m. Ethan was awake, had been for hours, sitting by the window watching the parking lot while everyone else slept. When Marcus's phone rang, the sound cut through the quiet like a knife. Marcus grabbed it, still half asleep, listened. His eyes went wide. "It's Agent Reeves," he mouthed to Ethan. Alessandra stirred on the other bed, sitting up. Her hair was a mess, yesterday's dress wrinkled. She looked like she hadn't slept either. Marcus put the phone on speaker. "Moving fast," Reeves was saying. "The U.S. Attorney's Office got a warrant at 5 this morning. We're executing it now. Catherine Virelli's home, her office, her bank accounts. Everything." "What about Catherine herself?" Alessandra asked, her voice rough. "Arrested 20 minutes ago. She's in custody." There was satisfaction in Reeves's tone. The recording sealed it. Combined with Rhodes's testimony and the financial evidence, we have enough for multiple counts. Embezzlement, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit murder. She's looking at 25 to life. Alessandra closed her eyes. Ethan watched the tension drain from her shoulders. Not all of it, but enough that she could breathe. "What about the others?" Marcus asked. "David Chen, Monica Reeves, the assistant?" "Already picked up. They're cooperating, trying to cut deals." Reeves paused. "It's over, Miss Virelli. Catherine's done. Her lawyers are already calling it a witch hunt, but with that recording, they don't have a leg to stand on." "Thank you," Alessandra said quietly. "Thank your fiancé, and whoever convinced you to wear that wire. It was risky, but it worked." Reeves's voice softened slightly. "You should know, the board called an emergency meeting for this afternoon. They're going to reinstate you as CEO, officially." Alessandra looked at Marcus, then at Ethan. "I don't know if I want that anymore." "You should take some time. Think about it." Reeves's tone became businesslike again. "I'll need formal statements from all of you within the next 48 hours. We'll be in touch." The line went dead. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Alessandra started laughing. It was a strange sound, half relief, half disbelief. She covered her face with her hands, and Ethan couldn't tell if she was laughing or crying or both. Marcus sat beside her, putting an arm around her shoulders. "It's over," he said. "Is it?" She looked up, tears on her face. "Catherine's arrested, but the company's a mess. The press is going to tear us apart.
Investors will panic. Employees will wonder if they still have jobs. So you fix it, Marcus said. The same way you fixed everything else, one step at a time. I don't know if I can. Yes, you do. He squeezed her shoulder. You just spent 3 days taking down one of the most powerful women in New York. Running a company is going to be easy after that. Alessandra wiped her eyes, looked at Ethan. What do you think? Ethan stood from his post by the window. I think Marcus is right, but I also think you need to decide what you actually want. Not what your father wanted, not what the board expects, what you want. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. I need to go home, take a shower, sleep in my own bed, and then I need to think. We'll take you, Marcus said. They checked out of the motel an hour later. Mrs. Chen had already left with Lila. Ethan had called her early, told her it was safe to take Lila back to the apartment. The old woman had asked no questions, just said she'd have breakfast ready when they returned. The drive back to Manhattan was strange. Traffic was its usual nightmare, but somehow it felt different. Normal, like the world had kept spinning while theirs had been falling apart, and now they were rejoining it. Alessandra's townhouse was in the Upper East Side, a 4-story brownstone with iron railings and window boxes that probably cost more than most people's cars. The security system recognized her this time. The door unlocked. Inside, everything was exactly as she'd left it. Except it wasn't. There were gaps where Catherine must have removed things. Missing artwork. Empty spaces on shelves. Alessandra stood in the foyer, looking around like she was seeing it for the first time. I'll make coffee, Marcus said, heading toward the kitchen. Ethan stayed with Alessandra. You okay? I don't know. This was supposed to feel like coming home, but it just feels like... She stopped. Like a museum. Like I'm visiting someone else's life. Maybe because it was someone else's life. Your father's, Catherine's, everyone's except yours. She looked at him. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I just know what it's like to live in someone else's version of your life. He thought about his ex-wife, the way she'd tried to shape him into something he wasn't. Sometimes you have to burn it down and start over. Is that what you did? I tried. Still trying, actually. He smiled slightly. It's harder than it sounds. Marcus came back with 3 mugs of coffee. They sat in Alessandra's living room, all leather and steel and glass, and drank in silence. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen with a photo of Lila eating pancakes, syrup on her nose, grinning at the camera. He showed it to Alessandra. She smiled. She's beautiful. Yeah, she is. You should go to her. You've been away too long. What about you? I'll be fine. Marcus is here, and I have about 1,000 phone calls to return. She set down her mug. But Ethan, before you go, I need to say something. He waited. I'm not good at this. At gratitude. At admitting I needed help. Alessandra's voice was steady, but her eyes were bright. But you saved my life multiple times, and you didn't have to. You had every reason to walk away, and you stayed anyway. You already thanked me. I know, but I want you to understand what it meant. Not just that you pulled me from a car or drove me to meetings or stood between me and people who wanted me dead, but that you saw me, the actual me, not the billionaire or the CEO or the broken daughter, just me. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. I'm going to pay off your debts, Alessandra continued. Set up a trust for Lila's education. Give you a contract with Varelli Technologies for all our generator and electrical work. And before you argue, this isn't charity. This is me investing in someone who deserves it. Alessandra, let me finish. I'm also going to stay in your life. If you'll let me. Not as a client or a business associate, as a friend. She paused. I don't have many of those, and I'd like to keep the ones I do have. Ethan smiled. I'd like that too. They shook hands. It felt absurdly formal after everything they'd been through. Then Alessandra pulled him into a hug. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. You're welcome. When Ethan got back to his apartment, Lila launched herself at him. He caught her, spun her around, buried his face in her hair. I missed you, Daddy. I missed you too, baby. So much. Mrs. Chen stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, watching them with the expression of someone who'd been worried sick
but would never admit it. "You look terrible," she said. "Feel terrible too." Ethan set Lila down. "But it's over. Whatever I was dealing with, it's done." "Good. Because this child needs stability, routine. Her father actually being present." "I know, and I will be. I promise." Mrs. Chen studied him, then nodded. "I made extra pancakes. You should eat." The next few days were a blur of statements and interviews and paperwork. Ethan spent hours at the FBI field office, walking through everything that had happened. Agent Reeves was thorough but fair, and by the end of it, Ethan felt like he'd told the story so many times it didn't feel real anymore. Marcus called every evening with updates. The board had officially reinstated Alessandra. The stock had taken a hit but was recovering. 3 major investors had issued statements of support. Catherine's trial date was set for early next year, and her lawyers were already trying to negotiate a plea deal. "How's she doing?" Ethan asked during one call. "Alessandra, she's—" Marcus paused. "She's struggling. The company's demanding all her attention, but I don't think her heart's in it anymore. She's going through the motions." Maybe she needs time. Maybe. Or maybe she needs permission to walk away. A week after Catherine's arrest, Alessandra showed up at Ethan's apartment. It was a Saturday. Ethan was helping Lila build a fort out of couch cushions when the buzzer rang. He wasn't expecting anyone, but when he opened the door, there she was. Jeans, a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup, no designer clothes, just Alessandra. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Lila peeked around Ethan's leg. "You're the lady from the adventure." Alessandra smiled. "That's me. Your dad and I went on quite a trip." "Did you fight dragons?" "Something like that." Ethan invited her in. Lila showed Alessandra the fort, explained the rules of the game they'd been playing, and demanded that Alessandra join them. For the next hour, Ethan watched a billionaire CEO sit on his living room floor and play make-believe with a 5-year-old. It was the most normal thing he'd seen her do. After Lila got bored and wandered off to watch cartoons, Alessandra and Ethan sat on the couch. "I made a decision," she said. "About the company, about everything." She turned to face him. "I'm stepping down. Not immediately. I'll stay on until we find a replacement and make sure the transition is smooth. But I'm done. I don't want to be CEO anymore." Ethan wasn't surprised. "What do you want to be?" "I don't know yet. That's the terrifying part." She laughed softly. "I've spent my entire adult life doing what I thought I was supposed to do, running my father's company, honoring his legacy, being the daughter he wanted, and I realized I don't even know who I am when I'm not doing that. So figure it out." "Just like that?" "Just like that. You've got time, money, no one trying to kill you anymore. Seems like a good opportunity to find out what makes you happy." Alessandra was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about what you said, about helping people. Single fathers, specifically, the ones who are struggling the way you were." "Yeah? What if we started something? A program? Job training, childcare support, financial counseling. Give them the tools to rebuild their lives." Ethan looked at her. "You're serious?" "Completely. I have the money. You have the experience. We could actually make a difference." She leaned forward. "I'm not talking about a charity that writes checks and feels good about itself. I'm talking about something real, hands-on, a place where people who've lost everything can come and find a way forward. That's—" Ethan stopped, started again. "That's a really good idea. So you'll do it? Partner with me?" "On one condition." "Name it." "We do it right. No cutting corners. No using people's pain as a photo op. We actually help them." Alessandra extended her hand. "Deal." They shook on it. 6 months later, the Cole Foundation opened its doors in a renovated warehouse in Queens. The name had been Ethan's idea. Alessandra had wanted to call it the Varelli Foundation, but Ethan had pushed back. "This isn't about your family's legacy," he'd said. "This is about building something new." So they'd compromised. The Cole Foundation, funded by Varelli Technologies, run by Ethan Cole and supported by Alessandra Varelli. The first class was 12 men, single fathers, all of them. Some had been laid off. Some had never finished high school. Some were recovering addicts. Some were just lost. Ethan stood in front of them on opening day and told them the truth. "I'm not going to lie to you," he said. "This is going to be hard. Learning new skills is hard. Rebuilding your life is hard. Being a good father when you're barely keeping your head above water is the hardest thing you'll ever do." He paused, looking at their faces. "But it's possible. I know because I've done it, and you can too. We're going to teach you how to fix generators, install electrical systems, repair equipment. We're going to help you get your GED if you need it. We're going to provide childcare while you're in class. And when you graduate, we're going to help you find jobs that pay enough to actually support your families." One of the men raised his hand. "What's the catch?" "No catch, just a requirement." Ethan smiled. "When you make it, when you're stable and employed and your kid's doing okay, you come back. You help the next group. You pay it forward." The man nodded slowly. "I can do that." "Good. Then let's get started." Alessandra watched from the back of the room. She'd insisted on being there for the opening, but she'd also insisted on staying out of the way. This was Ethan's thing. She was just the money. Except she wasn't. Over the following months, she showed up more and more. Started teaching a class on basic financial literacy. Helped graduates connect with employers. Sat in the childcare room reading stories to kids while their fathers learned to wire electrical panels. One evening, after everyone had gone home, Ethan found her sitting on the floor of the workshop, surrounded by tools. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Learning. I figured if I'm going to be here anyway, I should understand what we're teaching." She held up a wrench. "This is a torque wrench, right? Close. That's a pipe wrench." "Well, I was in the ballpark." She set it down. "Sit with me for a minute." Ethan sat. The workshop smelled like oil and metal and possibility. "I never thanked you," Alessandra said. "For this, for giving me something to believe in when I didn't believe in anything anymore. You're the one who suggested it. But you made it real. You made it matter." She looked around the space. "My father built a company, made billions, employed thousands, and none of it made him happy. None of it gave him peace. And this does? For you?" "This does." She smiled. "Turns out helping 12 guys learn to fix generators is more satisfying than running a billion-dollar company. Who knew?" "I knew. That's why I've been doing it for years. In a falling-apart truck for clients who haggle over every dollar." "Hey, that truck's still running." "Barely." Alessandra stood, brushing off her jeans. "Come on. Marcus is picking me up. We're getting dinner. You should come." "Can't. Lila's got a thing at school tomorrow. I need to help her practice her lines." "What's she playing?" "A tree." Alessandra laughed. "A tree?" "She's very committed to the role." "I'm sure she is." Alessandra grabbed her jacket. "Rain check then. Next week?" "Next week." She left, and Ethan stayed behind to lock up. As he turned off the lights and set the alarm, he thought about how much had changed in 6 months. Catherine was in prison awaiting trial. Jonathan Rhodes had cut a deal and was testifying against her. Monica Reeves and David Chen had both pled guilty to lesser charges. The board of Virelli Technologies had appointed a new CEO, a woman from outside the company with a reputation for cleaning up messes. Alessandra had kept her promise. She'd stayed on for 3 months to ensure a smooth transition, then she'd walked away. No dramatic press conference, no farewell speech. She just quietly stepped down and started showing up at the warehouse in Queens instead. Marcus had proposed. She'd said yes. They were planning a small wedding in the fall, just family and close friends. Ethan was invited. So was Lila, who was already planning what dress she'd wear. And Ethan himself? His debts were paid. Lila's education fund was set up. He had a steady contract with Virelli Technologies for maintenance work, plus a salary from the foundation. For the first time in years, he wasn't worried about making rent. But more than that, he had purpose. He was building something that mattered, helping people who needed it, being the person he'd needed when he'd been drowning. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. There were hard days, days when graduates relapsed or gave up or fell back into old patterns, days when Ethan questioned whether any of this made a difference. But then he'd see one of his guys land a job, or pick up his kid from school on time for the first time in months, or stand a little straighter, walk a little taller, smile a little wider, and he'd remember why he was doing this. A year after the scandal broke, Alessandra called him. "Turn on the TV," she said. "Channel 7.
Ethan grabbed the remote. Lila was already asleep, so he kept the volume low. The news was covering Catherine's sentencing. She'd been found guilty on all counts. The judge was reading the verdict. Catherine Varelli, you have been convicted of embezzlement, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and attempted murder. The court sentences you to 30 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole for the first 20. Catherine stood in the courtroom, her face a mask. She'd aged in the past year, her hair grayer, her face thinner. When the guards led her away, she didn't look back. Ethan turned off the TV. His phone rang again. Alessandra. You watching? She asked. I was. How do you feel? Ethan thought about it. Relieved, sad, both. Yeah, me too. She was quiet for a moment. She destroyed herself. I didn't have to destroy her. The truth did. Sometimes that's how justice works. I guess so. Another pause. Listen, there's something I want to talk to you about. The foundation. We've been running for a year now. We've graduated 43 men. 37 of them are employed. 12 came back to volunteer. Those are good numbers. They're great numbers, which is why I want to expand. Open a second location, maybe a third. Really scale this thing. Her voice was excited. But I can't do it without you. I need you to be all in, full-time director. Build this into something that outlasts both of us. Ethan looked around his apartment, at Lila's toys scattered on the floor, at the photos on the wall, pictures of her growing up, smiling, happy. What about my repair work? He asked. Hire someone, train them, pass it on. Alessandra's voice was gentle. You've spent your whole life keeping your head above water, Ethan. Don't you think it's time to actually swim? He closed his eyes, thought about the warehouse, the men they'd helped, the lives they'd changed. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I do. So you're in? I'm in. Good, because I already signed the lease on the second location. We open in 3 months. Ethan laughed. You were pretty confident I'd say yes. I know you, Ethan Cole. You're incapable of walking away from someone who needs help. She paused. It's your best quality, and your worst. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. They talked for another hour, planning the expansion, discussing logistics, dreaming about how big they could grow this thing. When they finally hung up, Ethan sat in the dark for a while, just thinking. He thought about the night he'd pulled Alessandra from that burning car, how he'd had no idea what he was stepping into, how terrified he'd been, how close they'd all come to not making it out. But they had made it out, all of them, broken and bruised and changed, but alive. And now they were building something good from the wreckage. 2 years after the scandal, the Cole Foundation had 4 locations across New York. They'd helped over 200 men. The success rate was holding steady. 70% job placement, 85% still employed after 6 months. Ethan had hired a full staff, former graduates mostly, guys who'd come through the program and wanted to give back. The workshop ran 6 days a week now. They'd added classes in plumbing, HVAC, carpentry. Alessandra showed up 3 days a week, sometimes more. She'd cut her hair short, wore jeans and work boots more often than dresses. She looked happier than Ethan had ever seen her. She and Marcus had gotten married in a small ceremony in Central Park. 50 guests. No press. Lila had been the flower girl, taking her duties so seriously that she'd counted every petal she dropped to make sure the distribution was even. Ethan had stood in the front row, watching Alessandra say her vows, and he'd thought about how far she'd come. From the bruised, terrified woman in his kitchen to this, confident, grounded, whole. After the ceremony, she'd pulled him aside. I need to tell you something, she'd said. Sounds serious. It is, sort of. She'd smiled. Marcus and I are moving, buying a house in Queens, closer to the foundation. You're leaving Manhattan? I'm leaving the version of myself that needed to live in Manhattan. She'd looked at him. I want to be near the work, near the people who matter, near you and Lila and Mrs. Chen and everyone else who's made this city feel like home. Ethan had hugged her. Welcome to the neighborhood. Thanks. Though I should warn you, I'm a terrible neighbor. I don't bake, I don't make small talk, and I definitely don't do book clubs. Lucky for you, neither do I. Now Ethan stood in the third location of the Cole Foundation, watching a new class of 20 men learn to wire a circuit breaker. One of them was making mistakes, getting frustrated, on the verge of giving up. Ethan walked over. "Let me show you something." He guided the man's hands, helped him make the connections correctly. Watch the moment understanding clicked into place.
"I got it," the man said, his face lighting up. "I actually got it." "You did. Now do it again, and again, until you can do it in your sleep." The man nodded, already reaching for the next wire. Ethan stepped back, watching him work. Felt a hand on his shoulder. Alessandra stood beside him. "Good class today." "Yeah, I think this group's going to do well. They've got a good teacher." She smiled at him. "You've changed a lot of lives, you know that?" "We've changed a lot of lives."
This was your idea. It was our idea. I just funded it. You made it real. She watched the class for a moment. I've been thinking about what comes next. Another location? Maybe. Or maybe something different. Job placement services, apprenticeship programs with major companies, housing support. She turned to him. I want to do more. I want to make sure these guys don't just get jobs, they get careers, stability, a real future. That's ambitious. I'm an ambitious person.
"You may have noticed." Ethan laughed. Once or twice. They stood there together, watching the class. Outside, the city hummed. Somewhere out there, another single father was struggling. Another person was drowning. Another life was on the edge of falling apart. But in this warehouse in Queens, 20 men were learning to build something. Learning that they mattered, that they could change their stories. And that was enough. Not perfect, not easy, but enough.
Ethan looked at Alessandra, this woman who'd stumbled into his life by accident and changed everything, who'd been broken and had chosen to rebuild, who'd had every reason to give up and had decided to fight instead. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For that night, for asking me to save your life, for letting me be part of this."
Alessandra smiled. "I should be thanking you. You saved me first." "We saved each other." "Yeah," she said. "I guess we did." The class ended.
The men filed out, talking and laughing. Ethan started cleaning up, putting tools back in their places. Alessandra helped. His phone buzzed, a text from Lila's school. She'd gotten the lead in the spring play. Not a tree this time. An actual speaking role. He showed Alessandra. She grinned. "That's my girl." "Your girl?" "I've been helping her practice. She's been coming over after school." Alessandra's expression was sheepish. "I hope that's okay. I probably should have asked." "It's more than okay." Ethan pocketed his phone. "You're family now. You don't have to ask." Alessandra's eyes got bright. She looked away quickly, but not before Ethan saw. "Come on," he said. "Let's lock up. I'll buy you dinner." "You're buying me dinner? With whose money?" "With the salary you pay me, actually. So technically, still your money." "In that case, I'll have the lobster." They turned off the lights and locked the doors, walked out into the evening air. The city stretched around them. Millions of lives, millions of stories, all of them unfolding at once. Somewhere in Manhattan, Catherine Varelli sat in a prison cell, facing the rest of her life behind bars. Somewhere in Queens, a single father tucked his daughter into bed and wondered how he'd make rent next month. Somewhere in Brooklyn, a man who'd graduated from the Cole Foundation 6 months ago got promoted at his job. And somewhere in between all of it, two people who'd survived the impossible walked down the street together, heading toward whatever came next. Not perfect, not easy, but absolutely, completely worth it.